Welcome to my podcast, Conversations with David. I am your host, David Owasi. And on this podcast, we're talking to accomplished entrepreneurs and professionals across the country. We're learning about what keeps them passionate, what keeps them going. And also, we're talking about some of the lessons and insights learned along the way. Now, I am here with my friend, someone who is hugely accomplished, Emily Franz-Lien. And I'm very excited to have her on the show today. Why don't you introduce yourself, Emily?
Thank you. I'm Emily Franz-Lien, and I am a tech entrepreneur. I started Checkit or Checkit.io, and I'm one of the technical founders. So I do a lot of software work, but then obviously dabble here and there and a little bit of everything. Yeah. So we've been doing that for a couple years now. We had to pivot a couple times to find something that the market actually wanted. But now we're doing great and things have been fine during the lockdown. So we're happy about that we're still going and yeah, working hard every day.
That's awesome, Emily. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what? I'm very excited to chat with you about Checkit, the story of your business. It's fascinating journey. But the first question I have for you, Emily, is what really actually got you into entrepreneurship in the first place? Why would you think, oh, I want to start my own company? And what prompted that thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think about that every day. Like, what if I had done something else and gone another way? But the reason why I went into tech entrepreneurship was because I discovered, it's kind of a weird story, but I discovered something called digital nomads, where people can live abroad and work online. And I thought that idea was just amazing. Like I saw these big groups of people congregating in Chiang Mai in Thailand and in Vietnam and all these countries that are cheaper to live and you could have an amazing lifestyle on less kind of thing and have a way that you can really own your own life and um, kind of have more fun. So that's kind of where it started. Yeah, my boyfriend also wanted the same thing, so we did it together.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And how long did you do that for?
Well, so we did go there. This was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
We were out in Southeast Asia for about a year, but we were mostly just learning to make apps. We had both done degrees that were technical, but not computer science. So he did engineering and I did a stats degree at the U of M. We both had to take computer science in the course, but it wasn't it was a minor amount and not a complete one.
Mm.
So we just needed to learn more and hone our skills a little bit. And so we created a lot of apps that didn't end up making any money, but we still learned a ton.
Totally. Very interesting that you mentioned computer science degree. I graduated with a computer science degree from the University of Manitoba
Yeah.
with a minor in business. And yeah, you do have to take some of those classes to help you understand programming, how that would work. Would you feel that your time creating apps prepared you for your company right now? Checkit. What was the place of creating all of those apps, doing all of that work, understanding how it works? How has that impacted your current business right now?
Um, I definitely learned some stuff, not everything that I needed, but we are doing some app stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the time we were doing a lot of front end app making. We didn't actually know anything about REST APIs. We learned that later.
Mm.
Um, but a lot of computer science grads don't know that either. They learn on the job too. So
Right.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely valuable to, I think having to work when you work for yourself and when you're starting a business, you have to spend quite a long time working for free until you can create a profit, which is very different than getting a job working for a company. And you have to have a pretty strong will, I think, especially at the beginning, because
Mm.
there's this big kind of hurdle that you have to jump over. and that definitely prepared us for that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Funny thing you mentioned the REST APIs. I only learned about REST APIs as well when I was out of university,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
funny.
was
We hired a guy and we're like, oh, you don't know this? Okay.
I only learned the REST
It's
APIs.
like the most basic part of programming, right?
It
Like,
is very basic, and the concept is very basic, but I never really, maybe once or twice I came across it in like some computer science classes, but it was only when I was working with AWS, like Amazon Web
yeah,
Services, and like creating Lambda functions, all of that stuff, that I started to really understand, okay, I need to know about REST APIs and use them. But thought that was interesting. So let's
yeah.
talk about Checkit. How did the idea come about? How did you guys arrive at that idea? I know it was an evolution of something different, which kind of came to Checkit. Can you just share that story with me?
For sure. So we had come back to Winnipeg after our travels, and we thought I thought it was a good idea to network a little bit and meet people, and so I joined an entrepreneurship group, North Forge. With I don't think I even joined. I just signed up for a meetup, and then a guy from Red River, Scott McCauley, who's an entrepreneurship professor, contacted Dan and Miles, our partners now,
Mm,
because they were looking for a developer. So we met up with them, and then they asked us to join their project, which was a geolocation API that they were working on. Um, and so we did, and then so they had a current guy that was working on it, but he moved to another province and was working at a company and all sorts of stuff. And so we worked on it for a little bit, but we were concerned about how we would be able to generate revenue. So we pivoted to a Wi-Fi marketing company, which was collecting emails and phone numbers for restaurants through their Wi-Fi, and then allowing the business to send out text messages and emails and coupons and all that sort of thing.
mm,
So at the time, we had worked a lot with, like Mailgun and Twilio and all those services where they offer programmable messaging.
mhm,
So we were doing fine. Like we had signups and everything, but it was a lot of work to install the router, and it ended up being like more of an overhead cost. And we were like, I don't know if this is going to work out. So one day Lee and I were just on Reddit, on the entrepreneurship subreddit, and some guy had posted about reviews. And so he was talking about how he helped businesses get reviews through a text message, by sending out a text link kind of thing. And we
mm.
are like, oh, we could totally do this. We already have this whole kind of infrastructure built for kind of business to customer text messaging. So let's add this review part and maybe we can get more business that way. So we kind of pivoted to like a no hardware, software only company. And then from there, things just started taking off. And we're like, oh, okay, this is great. Like now we're actually kind of scaling. And it wasn't like all at once, but it was definitely enough that we're like, yeah, we can make a full-time living off of it. And then we started growing and we hired some people, and now we're all good and we're doing well.
That is amazing. That is a fantastic story of the growth of your company. And one of the things that I heard just with you explain that is the role of pivoting and being open to make changes when you feel
Mhm.
like things are not going your way.
That's
Sometimes
so important in entrepreneurship.
totally, very important in entrepreneurship. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we attach our egos to our
Yeah,
ideas,
yeah.
and you don't want to let go because it's my little baby, it's my small baby. I don't want to let go, but sometimes you let go, you get something better. Can you just share with me that process of letting go, or how you came to the realization that okay, this is not working and it's time to make that change?
Mhm.
How did you realize that, and how did you make that step?
I think like the important thing is to listen to the revenue, like you're like, okay, just listen to your environment, listen to whether the market is there. Because I have read that like most businesses or startups fail because there's no market need,
Mm,
like that. And it is hard for to kind of let your ego go. But I think like once you start something, there's no way forward except forward. Like you have no choice. If you yeah, if you're an employee, you just get paid regardless of the results in a way. Not like completely. Like obviously you get paid for your work, but like yeah, it's not the same thing when you're taking a huge risk and you might not get your money back for the time that you worked for free, right? Like you
Mhm.
have to find some kind of way forward or you quit and you don't want that. Because then everything that you did up until that point was for nothing.
Totally. And on one end, you want to take that risk, you want to make pivots, you want to listen to what the market is saying. But of
Mhm.
course, that means that you have to embrace the possibility of failure. And I think
Absolutely.
that a lot of entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, they are scared of the idea of putting themselves out there because they're like, what if I fail? How, in your opinion, have you overcome or did you overcome that fear of failure? Was that even a thing for you? Or did you just like just jump into it and be
Oh,
like,
no, I fear. I don't think mine was an ego fear though. It was more like a just worried about like supporting ourselves and stuff. But I guess it's in a way it's kind of unfounded fear because at the end of the day, it's not like we don't have skills that we couldn't just like get a proper normal job.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I definitely had fear of kind of like more just security, not really ego, but I'm sure if things didn't work out, I probably would have taken a bit of a hit to my ego. But yeah, I don't know. I think like life's full of opportunity, and you just kind of got to roll with it and be humble and just I don't know.
For sure, totally.
Okay.
I can see that you have a little bit of I would say perhaps maybe a laid back approach to life, which kind of maybe reflects in how you approach your business. But we'll come to that in a minute. I really, I want to ask you, Emily, about that first year of running a business. So, the very first year is a very pivotal year because, of course, you're still building the infrastructures of the business. You're still trying to nail down what the actual business is, and you're trying to bring in revenues, trying to make money at the same time. What was that first year like for you? What was the experience like? And the reason why I'm asking that is, a lot of people are listening to our show and they're thinking, I want to do this entrepreneurship thing. I want to start up my business. And then they're not sure what to expect in the first year because every success story they read about, they're like in their fifth year, 10th year, 11th year, they've gone through that initial grind of the first year. Can you just paint the picture for me of what the first year looks like?
Expect to not make very much money, but you have to have a long-term picture ahead of you that success kind of builds on itself. And if you're going in the right direction, that's the hardest part is you have to like imagine you're on a ship and you're trying to steer it and you're like in the complete dark and you're
Mm,
like, where should I go? And then kind of like as you go, the light starts to come on and you see where you're going and you're like, okay, this is a little bit easier and it gets easier. And then you start actually making real money and like it's I swear to you the first year is the like one of the hardest, but if you have like I think if I was a solo entrepreneur it would have been much worse because
mm,
at least you have the social aspect where you're like talking to each other like, hey, what should we do? Like, you know, you're talking to each other, you have a team
mm.
even if it's small, right?
Yeah. So it totally is more helpful when you have a team behind you trying to talk through issues together, relying on each other mentally, physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
and leaning into each other. For sure, makes sense. And now, 4 years into Checkit, Checkit, of course, is making a lot of progress, lots of growth. What have you learned 4 years since overcoming that first big, massive year of uncertainty? What have you learned 4 years in?
What have I learned for years? And I think like customer I think you have to focus on your customers a lot. Like make sure that they're happy with what you're doing and then try to get them to get referrals for you, get them to leave reviews for you, make sure you're visible, and be open to partnerships with other companies. Um, Yeah, and then also be aware that your competitors are not going to like it.
Mm,
So they're going to try to find ways to take you down, and you're going to have to you're going to have to stay afloat and keep yourself kind of fighting
mm,
and competing with them, right?
right. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely makes sense. Now, I'm curious, Emily. I'm not sure if you're familiar with someone called Mago Miller. She is a big person in the tech entrepreneurship space here in Manitoba. Does that ring a bell or no?
Oh, I've never heard of her.
Okay. Either ways, the reason why I brought it up was one of her specialties, and I had her on the show a couple of weeks ago, was that she really is all about women in tech, especially in entrepreneurship as it relates to tech. And you're definitely one of those people in that space, which is not a space occupied primarily by women, whether we like it
Mhm,
or not. It's just the reality.
mhm.
How does it feel, or what was the experience like for yourself as a woman in tech, in that space, in entrepreneurship, in focusing on technology and software and all of that stuff? How does it feel being in that world, and what are some of the things you've learned?
That's a big question. I think I maybe had a bit of a chip on my shoulder where I felt like I had to prove myself more. So like I just make sure that I speak up a lot or like say a lot, I guess. And yeah. But I think like so far it's been fine, and I haven't had issues with that, like not that much with sexism or anything like that. So yeah. But I think a big thing is I have so like my tech partner is also my life partner. So we are co-founders, but we also are like really close friends, and so I always had his support. Um, and he knows that I'm a hard worker and a smart person. So yeah, it's been
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
that definitely makes a difference for sure. What would your advice be for someone, say, 5 years younger than yourself, kind of
Mhm.
trying to start out, and they don't have the benefit of having a partner like yourself who kind of respects you and sees the value of your work, which is amazing, but they're having to deal with, sexism, which unfortunately is
Well,
still the case, especially in the tech space. What would your recommendation or your advice be for someone like that who is still starting out?
I would say try to make some allies, make some close friends with the people that you work with, and then if you're close enough, open up about issues that are coming up for you. Like I think having an ally is important
Mm-hmm.
because you want to feel like you're heard, and you want to feel like your impact is being understood, and that comes like obviously you get paid for that, and so that's important. So yeah,
Totally.
definitely allies.
Yeah, allies. I like that word. Finding allies. I think that's very important. And finding allies has to do it goes beyond just your technical skills, right? Of course, your technical skills helps you, brings you to the table, but then that goes beyond just how well you can program it. It encompasses things like your ability to talk to people, your ability to be a good communicator, your ability to understand what people are trying to do, or just to read the room. Now, I'm a huge proponent of skills in emotional intelligence and balance, and perhaps some will say soft skills, even though that seems to be an outdated word these days because they are very vital and core skills, no longer just soft, right? But what
Yeah.
would you say has been the place of those kind of skills in your career success, and for someone who is trying to run a business or be an entrepreneurship? Why do they need skills like that?
I think for me, I knew the skills that I was really good at, and I knew the skills that I was not the best at. So I tried to find people that complemented those for me, that they could fill the gaps. So I wouldn't say I'm bad at emotional intelligence, but I'm definitely not an extrovert. And so I wanted to find people that were really like selling extroverts, like get out there, make sure that we can bring in revenue and stuff like that. So I can focus on the tech. Lee and I could focus on the tech and like internal things more so, and they can kind of like get us out there. So that emotional component of kind of like knowing yourself and understanding where your best role is, I think is a big thing. Um, and then Hmm. Yeah, and I think like that what we talked about earlier with rolling with the punches is a whole another thing of entrepreneurship and emotional intelligence. That's pretty important because I definitely know people that are not laid back that probably wouldn't like it. It'd be too stressful.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I really like the point you made about knowing yourself. I mean, that really is the foundational pillar, if you will, of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness or emotional awareness, which is understanding, where you are, what you're good at. That's a little bit of self-assessment, but understanding yourself and knowing where you are, knowing what you're feeling, knowing what's going on inside of you, and making sure that it aligns with understanding how it aligns with your long-term goals. So in your case for self-awareness, is that something you developed consciously, or just happen to just know the kind of person you are? Have you like put in any specific work into doing that? I'm just curious.
Actually, I did do a bit of work. Well, in grade 12, I took the Myers-Briggs test. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Love it.
Okay, yeah. I
What did you
scored
test as?
INTJ.
Ah, the
Yeah,
visionary
I think
INTJ.
so, yeah.
That's a very good one.
So, yeah. I thought, like, there are tech entrepreneurs that are famous that have that personality.
Yes, I think
I'm not
Steve
as smart
Jobs did.
as them, like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and all them, but I think there's definitely proponents of that personality that does jive really well with entrepreneurship
Right.
and tech.
hmm
Mhm.
So what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you is that doing your Myers-Briggs personality type test kind of helped you understand yourself better, your strengths, weaknesses, where you're more likely to. And how did that like translate into a practical sense? I know one example you gave was the fact that you knew you were more introverted and you wanted someone who was more extroverted to do the selling. Was there any other way that it impacted, say, maybe how you acted or decisions you made or how you presented yourself or anything like that?
Um, hmm, that's a difficult question. I don't know how I present myself.
I don't mean to stump you. I'm just one who is very, very interested in
Yeah,
MBTIs and the Enneagrams as well. And when
yeah.
I find someone who has a bit of interest in them, I'm always curious to learn as much as possible from them. But if you didn't have an answer,
I
that's
think
okay.
actually, you know what? I think the fact that I knew that was my personality type did help me pick computer science, and I did a statistics degree, so I think I may have been kind of put off by it because of the media or like different things of people being extremely nerdy
Mm,
and weird. And I'm sure like you don't see a lot of women in those roles these days, and but if I didn't know that I had that personality type, I don't know if I would have kind of found it, even though I was really good at math in high school. But
right.
yeah,
For
so
sure.
yeah, I think I knew kind of like, where a logic based career made sense for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So being a statistics major, definitely logic based. Statistics was not one of my favorite class courses, but that definitely aligns a lot with computer science as well.
Yeah, it does
And
definitely.
it makes sense that you went in there. Now, of course, Emily, we're in the pandemic, and that has definitely affected many businesses. I'm sure yours included. What has the effect of the pandemic been on your business? How have you been adapting and adjusting to this new reality?
Well, I think we got lucky in that whole world because our business is online. A lot of our customers are in a lot of different verticals, and I know for some softwares they focus on certain industries. So if we had been doing Wi-Fi with restaurants, we would have been wiped out.
That's
Uh,
correct.
yeah. So we were lucky. We had a lot of dentists. We had a lot of I don't know, like really random things. We have a pet cemetery. We have pawn shops, like all sorts of different things. So we saw a lot of dentist office wanting to pause.
Mm,
So we let them pause, and we were lucky that there are still lots of other businesses, legal businesses, all sorts of things that were still open and still paying customers. So we were okay. We definitely lost some revenue. We did get help from the government, but we did fine, and we have seen growth during the pandemic as well. So
That's amazing. Is there a specific, so let's talk about Checkit a little bit more here. So is there Checkit basically helps businesses provide, get surveys or ask their customers questions about their experience, right? Why should a company really strongly consider your business, and what kind of value would it impact for them?
sure. Well, we help businesses with their customer communication. So
Okay.
if you have businesses that really need to have a good relationship with their customers, which most businesses do, um, we enable the two-way texting for businesses, and then we also make things a lot easier for their processes. So like you can collect payments through our system, you can ask for reviews, um, you can ask for a feedback questionnaire and all sorts of things. And then we also have a web chat widget that goes on their websites. That's those like, how can I help you today? We have one of those as well. So it's a lot of local businesses that are, like lots of local businesses want to get online, and they're being outcompeted by Amazon and big players that are already have such a huge online presence. And if they want to compete and survive in the economy, they need to get online and be visible, not only with reviews, but have they have a website that customers can contact them on. So yeah.
Right. And so you work with all types of businesses clearly. And in terms of how it would be deployed, is it just like a normal text, or the customers have to download some sort of app, or is it how,
That's
like
the
how?
beautiful thing, is that customers don't have to download an app, which
Yes.
like a lot of the time people don't want to and they can't be bothered. So that's why text messaging has been key. So the businesses have an online portal where they can text their customers from, but for the customer, the experience is just on their phones, just texting. It's like texting somebody.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've definitely checked out the website, and we'll be sharing that to all of my friends and contacts. An amazing
Yeah.
product. Now, on the second spectrum of the pandemic is for you personally. So, of course, you're still running a business, you still have all this demand, business has to grow, revenue has to come in. How has the pandemic affected you in terms of your personal performance and productivity, and not being weighed down by all of the things going on in this world? How have you been able to maintain and keep things going?
Oh, my personal life is so boring right now. All there is to do is go on the river trail and walk up and down. I swear. um, I don't know. I don't think my life wasn't that exciting before, but it's definitely kind of sucks to not be able to socialize with people outside of work. And yeah, the only thing that's been exciting is getting takeout every Saturday. But I
And
guess things are opening up a little more where you're allowed to have one person at your house.
yes. Yeah. So if I'm hearing from you, like you've been working from home, keeping up motivation has not been much of a challenge. You just kind of take walks out to get recharged,
Mhm.
and that's all you need, and you're good to go.
Good to go, but I wish the gyms were open. I definitely have been slacking on exercise, which is not the best because I know it does help with like everything in life, right?
Hmm. I wonder if your approach is based on your introversion. I wonder if there's a correlation between your introversion and being perfectly fine, just being at home.
Yeah. Yeah, my partner is definitely more extroverted than me, but he has this group where he gets on every night playing video games with his friends, and they have, Discord.
Mm-hmm.
They're on Discord like every single night.
Wow, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And
play
I'm just
on.
like sitting reading or watching TV. I'm like, ooh,
I
it's
play.
not conflict going in, but
Hmm. Sounds like he knows his stuff. What kind of games does he play?
they what do they do? Um what is it
The
called?
first-person
Overwatch.
shooters.
Overwatch.
Overwatch. Ah, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Wow, Overwatch. It had its heights like a couple years ago, but yeah, sounds.
Started playing again. And then they were also playing just like random online games. Like, have you heard of Drawasaurus?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's fun. It's just like you draw a little picture and people try to guess what it is. It's simple but fun.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, one thing that I know that is very important to you is social entrepreneurship as well, right?
Yeah,
Sustainability, equitability. Can you just share more about what that means to you and why you're passionate about that?
sure. I definitely would like to be more involved in something, but there's only so much time in the day.
Mm,
But I think to a certain extent, like I think about what my life is and what I'm doing with it every day. And I think if I um was, like once you get to a point where you're doing fine and you can sustain your lifestyle and everything like that, and you have a little extra time to help other people, I think that's a good thing. If it's just donating or like being part of a cause like women in tech, or helping young girls learn about technology and opportunities, or helping with climate change in some way, I'd really like to do that, but just haven't had any time or like any made any headway on it. But definitely in my future I'd like to do something more socially impactful. Yeah.
Is there like a specific reason why you're drawn to that? And the reason why I ask is that is, of course, we all want to do things that impact our society. Taking that next step is definitely a whole different conversation entirely.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, like I feel like the one of the ways I've been able to contribute is by being a mentor at the U of M, so University of Manitoba. I mentor like second, third year university students every semester, and I set up sessions with them every 2 weeks where I walk them through whatever questions they have about their career and life. Why is that important to you? For me, no, it is important to me because I just want to give back. Because when I was that age, I would have appreciated someone like me, a version of myself right now, who I can talk to and who understand the issues. So for me, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to give back. Why is it important for you to give back?
I think it's because we're all gonna die at one point, and
Right.
it's like you matter so much, but I think we matter as a whole to each other. We kind of owe each other to help each other out and
Mm,
make our lives easier, and and look after the planet and just be good people.
right. So you're thinking that's well, a little morbid, but we're gonna all men must die, and that is driving you to try and do something that almost transcends you in a way, a lasting impact, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
um Yeah, I think Bill Gates is doing a good job. But
Is
I
it?
could do something in a smaller way,
Yeah.
and help out in a way. Yeah.
Have you had any specific ideas on how you can actually practically start contributing? Like it sounds like you have a lot of big ideas for how you want to contribute. You mentioned global warming. You mentioned
Mhm.
the environment. You mentioned, supporting maybe women in tech. Is there a specific area you're drawn to, or for contributing your time, or that's still something you're trying to figure out?
Mhm. I really like transportation. I think transportation is pretty fun way to, try to get other people to try some more sustainable ways to get around.
Mm,
Um, at one point I made a post on the Winnipeg subreddit about like the whole financial impact of car ownership
mm,
and how expensive it is, and people don't really realize how much they're spending, as a way to kind of push them more towards the bus or like biking or something like that instead.
mm-hmm,
Which for some reason in Winnipeg people hate the bus and they think it's this like lowly awful
mm.
thing. I don't know why. Like we actually have a really like I think there is a company in Winnipeg that makes the buses for us, isn't there?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
They're an American company, if I believe. Ah, no, actually, they're a Canadian company. But yes, they're here in
Yeah.
Winnipeg. I forget their
Yeah, I
name
saw
now.
they just came out with a automated bus where it's driverless.
Mm.
But it's cool. But for some reason, there's this huge stigma that only poor people take the bus or something. I don't get it.
Mm. I can definitely understand that. It is I'm not sure if it's a Winnipeg thing, if it's a Canadian thing. Maybe it's because of the way our system is set up that makes it feel that way. It's not set up for premium premium experience, maybe not. But that's certainly very interesting. Well, I do have one final question for you. And this question is, what do you see the future holding for yourself, for Checkit, as we are hopefully moving into a post-pandemic world? How do you feel that this change is going to affect you once you're able to get back to whatever normal will be for your business and for yourself?
Well, I think eventually we'll sell and or be acquired, hopefully. But if that doesn't happen, then we'll just keep growing and become hopefully like a mammoth in the space.
Mm. So being a mammoth in the space, what does that look like?
What does that look like? Well, if that's a good question. We're still pretty small, and we do have competitors that are giant, but they have very bad customer experiences. They're not really trustworthy in that way. So I think like our reputation is very good right now, and I think we could become something very large that everyone knows about and uses Checkit for their business customer communication.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, but I think like partnering with bigger companies that have huge networks is definitely in our future.
Totally. Well, thank you for sharing all of that thoughts. I've really appreciated, getting into your corner of the world and trying to understand where things are with Checkit. And it's an amazing business idea, and your journey is fascinating. Is there any last word of advice or wisdom you have for our listeners before I let you go?
Thanks, dude. I think just try something, especially for young people. Like, don't be afraid of don't be so risk averse and not being willing to try something new or different, because you'll definitely get more confidence out of it even if it doesn't work out. So yeah, just try stuff, have fun.
That's awesome. I'm laid back like Emily. That's awesome. Thank you again for your time. It's been so much a pleasure here speaking with you and just getting to hear your thoughts. And I wish you and Checkit all the very best. And I'm sure I'll be checking in again from time to time to see how things are going at Checkit.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure. It's fun.
Absolutely.